Welcome to Foxhole Symphony, a podcast about the transformational value of men in authentic community.
In our Foxhole, men are equipped to build relationships that foster belonging, accountability, and growth.
Stop believing the lie that you can thrive in isolation and instead
join us on the journey from broken to whole.
Hey everybody, Chris here, and thank you for joining us in the Foxhole today, where we pursue belonging, accountability, and growth through authentic relationships. No masks, no agendas, just iron sharpening iron. On today's episode, Steve and Mark are talking missions trips. They are taking us on a journey to some of the places they were blessed to be able to go and serve, and sharing how those trips sometimes yielded some unexpected results. Grab your passports and buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. This is where the rubber meets the road. Let's listen in.
Hey, welcome back to Foxhole Symphony Podcast. I'm Sarge, your co-host, here with Mark.
Hey, good morning.
Yes.
Or good evening, wherever you are.
It is a good, beautiful morning, and excited to be here with you and talk about mission.
All right. Being on mission or going to a mission or
all of it.
All of it.
I mean, I think it is all applicable, and
Yeah.
we're gonna dive right in, and I think
love
we're gonna talk about some of the opportunities that God has drawn us into over the years. A number of years, almost 15 years, right? About as long as we've been journeying together here.
Yeah.
A lot of that started back in 2008 in Mexico. And so, not to dive right in, but that's what comes to mind.
Yeah, well, let's take a half a step back because I want to be sure there are a group of people listening that understand what a missions trip is.
Yeah.
And then there are some others going,
What are you talking about?
Right. What missions trip? So in our faith walk, we've had these opportunities to join other believers and go around the world or next door and to spread the word, right? To do work, to do service opportunities. And it's not like a work crew per se, but generally a missions trip has a lot of parts to it. There's certainly a scriptural part and a prayerful part. There's usually service. There's a way to bring some gifts you have to somewhere else and say, hey, we can pitch in here. Now there's a whole podcast about, are we really helping? Are we taking this whole Western thing and spreading it around and trying to jam it down people's throat? The old, if you hand a guy a fish, he eats today.
Yeah.
If you teach him to fish, he eats for his life.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's not do that. I don't think for today we'll get into that level of detail. But
no,
well,
I think it's important. I mean, if we're going to talk about mission trips,
it is important. I'm just a little concerned. That rabbit hole is a deep one.
I don't think it needs to be. I mean, I could provide some color along the way.
All right, good. So let's say this for everyone listening. For context, the missions trip we're talking about are 4 events in particular, right? Feed the Need, Zimbabwe, Mexico Makeover, and El Salvador.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can speak personally of our experiences there, and that's what we've promised to do to our listeners, is just talk about what we know and what we've done. And you've been in leadership in many of those. I've been a drone and happily a cement mixer,
Yep.
But we're going to talk about those from the perspective of a churchgoer that gathers with a group, heads out to someplace else and provides service, spreads the word, community, camaraderie, fellowship, all the good things that come with it, with an eye towards really living out our scriptural call to spread the word and help others. Mm-hmm. That may even oversimplify it, but that's what I think when I think missions trip. Do you want to round that out or smooth the rough edges on that for me?
Well, I mean, as you know, this is an area that I've been very passionate about.
Sure.
and had the opportunity over a number of years to really develop in my own heart and in my, in my soul and in my walk and in relationships. And I think it's the relational aspect that, we really want to touch on that when as I'm listening to you, right, it's the relational aspect of a mission trip that is so, potentially transformational.
Yeah.
Our relationship with God, our relationship with those we're traveling with, and our relationships with those on the ground, with whoever we're going to see.
Sure.
And I think going back to what you said earlier, I could provide a little bit of color there.
Yeah, please.
As it relates to why we go. You know, because I think that's really critical, right? I mean, the average is like, how is this any different than, you know, going down the street and serving with, you know, XYZ charitable organization?
Yeah, or why don't you just send them a check?
Well, that too.
Yeah.
That too, right? And that's needed. That's needed. But particularly, you know, the service aspect of this, right? Like, I'm going to go serve and I'm going to feel really good about it, is a really dangerous trap.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's it for me.
Yeah.
Faith and works.
And the thing is, though, that what I saw and what I've seen over the years is that that's often what attracts someone initially to an opportunity like that. And that's okay. Like, that is okay. I have to tell myself that's okay, right? And yet, I think we do have a responsibility for those that are in leadership, who are leading others with regards to missions. I think it is your responsibility. It's our responsibility to mold and shape that, to educate, to teach, to guide, you know, prayerfully, to help that shift, that perspective shift from, you know, going to help these people and feel better about myself for doing good, to, you know, I'm a broken vessel that just wants to join God at work, and I want to be worked in. I want my heart, right, moved just as much as, and much more than I'm going to rescue.
I get it so much, and what you're saying resonates with me because I'm on the wrong side of that equation. Faith and works. Look, I've been saved for 16 and a half years. Mm-hmm. So 14 years ago, I hear from J-Dog, Jeremy Moore, shout out Jeremy.
Jay Diggs, shout out Jay Diggs.
That there's a trip being planned because Pete Gatto and his wife Cher decided to move from the second most affluent county in the country to the desert. They're going to be missionaries in the desert. There's nothing there. There's literally streams in the desert.
Yes.
And
stream.
Right. But there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I really like Pete. Our sons are in scouts together. Pete's pretty cool. Love when he preaches. I dig Pete Gatto. Okay, check. Sarge is going. Oh, puck hog. All right, couple friends going. What do you got to do? Well, building a palapa. A what? A palapa.
Yeah.
Oh.
Isaiah Kiner Palapa. He plays for the Yankees.
I saw him yesterday. No, that's Cabrera. Sorry. But
Kiner Falefa. Sorry.
There you go. So let me get focused. There's nothing in my memory says, oh, I'm a broken vessel and I'm going to go do God's work. I was a relatively fit 50-year-old. And they said, look, there's manual labor. There's work to be done. And we're going to go to the local church and we're going to hang with the local people. We're going to eat the local food. We're going to be with them. It's all together. So there was 10, 12, 15 of us go on this trip. And I was on the work side. For me, it turned out to be a transformational event, but the catalyst of my going, I wasn't mature enough in my faith to understand that, just so you know.
Right. No, and that's what I mean. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And that's okay. And we have an opportunity to, you know, and it's just part of discipleship. That's part of discipleship.
Yeah.
Is inviting that and guiding it and shepherding it, and right, and stewarding that well, because it matters. And, you know, it matters to those on the ground and it matters to those going, but often gets really screwed up. Yeah. Really screwed up. So again, that is a whole nother podcast. I won't go, too deeply because I can go down that rabbit trail.
We agree.
But I do think, back in 2009, this was after the Mexico trip. The next year, Brian Fickert writes a book, When Helping Hurts. Sure. And it should be required reading for anybody that goes on a mission trip, and should certainly be required reading for anybody leading a mission trip. Yep. And dramatically shifted my perspective, not just from reading it, but then from attempting to live it and shift the perspective over the course of the next 5 to 7 years, going to Zimbabwe and other places. Yeah. And leading teams. But, it is, and just for those that I promise I won't go too deep into the rabbit hole, but the premise of the book, essentially, if I could boil it down to one thing, is that, we in the West have typically a paternalistic mindset.
Sure.
That says, we have resources, we need to go and save these people and help them.
Right.
Right. And it's the wrong mindset. They don't need saving. They don't, in fact, most oftentimes when we do go, especially with that mindset, we're actually doing more damage than good. And the people we're going to serve see right through it and actually look at us and go, wow, like, why do they feel like we need saving? We're actually doing quite well, right? Like it just looks a lot different.
Yeah.
It looks a lot different than how we live, right? And so a lot of damage can be done culturally, spiritually, economically, if we approach it with an unhealthy mindset. So I'll just leave that there.
And I got it because I remember listening to, I think his name was Richard Stearns, but the World Vision
Rich
guy.
Stearns, sure.
He helped me understand. This is long after I did a few events.
Yeah.
Just understand what was happening. He talked about, I recall him talking about, we don't make or take the opportunity to walk in the shoes of the people we're going to visit. If we did, we'd have a whole different perspective.
Right. Same with Wes Stafford, who was a missionary kid, and, his story is unbelievable. I mean, if you haven't read his book, my gosh, I mean, get it. But Wes Stafford was the longtime president of Compassion, and, has just done amazing work.
Sure.
And so anyway,
okay.
Thankfully there are a lot of leaders out there of these organizations and ministries that have that healthy perspective, and many who have lived it, which is why they have it.
I love talking to you because
thanks.
this is not at all what I thought we were going to talk about. It really expands my brain to remember because the trips, I had so many remarkable events. I've got, the Rock here and things we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Things that I remember, as I said to you yesterday, I was praying about, Lord, just like expand my vision for what happened there. Right.
Well, and can I just say, because we're going to talk about these in a second. And the reason I wanted to say those things is because I think it sets the tone for what you're about to say as we talk about these opportunities, the relational component, what transpired out of each of these trips, and the authentic community that was created, developed, fostered, that flourished through these opportunities, both here and abroad, is unbelievable. And that's just God at work.
Yep. Amen. Agree completely. So where do you want to start? You want to start with, just stay with Rancho?
Sure.
Because we've been talking about it?
Sure.
So I already told you the genesis for me going. Do you recall what drew you to go on that trip? Like, do you remember when you decided to sign up?
I really don't. I mean, I think probably I was being encouraged, like, hey, this would be a great growth experience for you, right? And was an opportunity to kind of jump in and just grow and be grown and join God at work. But I think in part, you mentioned Jeremy. I mean, I'm sure it was in part, his influence.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know it was. There was a. You know me well enough to know I'm the guy that asked the question. I probably went up to Jeremy and said, "All right, I'm here at Southridge. We're doing a little service here. I'm like managing the kids in between services in the gym so they don't climb the walls and so on and so forth. And Maria and I are greeting and like new believers, new people at the church. Got a year and a half in. They've seen our faces enough times. Oh, we can trust you with a little more. And I probably went up to Jeremy and said, so what do I do next? What do you need? What does a believer do?
Yes.
You know my situation. Here's my wife. Here's my boys. We're engaged. We're digging this church. We're going to stay. I'm 3 miles away. Yeah. There's a lot of good things about Southridge Community Church. We like it. Yeah. And he probably said, well, planning a missions trip.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
So that's it.
Exactly. And, for me, it was the first, international mission trip for me. I had quite a bit of exposure prior to that as a youth leader at an awesome church in Pennsylvania. And introduced this. I had been introduced to a ministry called Group Work Camps years before that, and then as a youth leader, kind of got the youth involved and brought them to different places. And it was disaster relief. So we'd go up to down to North Carolina after a hurricane. There's a lot of that going on right now. Samaritan's Purse is another one that is always like first on the ground and doing great work. And so most of my exposure was in that type of work. So similar, but it was disaster relief and largely around youth. And but what was cool about that was the relational component. So you'd have a group of kids, you'd go out and work on somebody's home. The home was typically some level of devastation or need due to natural disaster. Sure. And you built a relationship with that family. That was your spot for the week, and it was me and another adult leader and like 5 or 6 teens at that one house with that family. And the first time you're like, okay, it's awkward, and by the end of the week, there's hugging, there's tears, there's,
we're going to miss you.
Yes. And there's relationship among those teens, who didn't know each other, but were strategically placed with those who they didn't know.
Sure.
And so, just part of beginning to expand our awareness of the body of Christ. That's one of the things that I love most about these types of opportunities, is seeing the body of Christ at work in a way that maybe you wouldn't typically see.
Sure.
And saying, oh, wow, like I see God over there and I see God in them, and look what God did here. And, and so that was my exposure up to that point.
Well, you just poked me and my brain is on now, ready, go. And I'm thinking about some things, words and phrases I heard for the first time when we were talking about going on this trip. They said, as you get to the bottom of the page of all the good reasons you're going to go to the trip was called Mexico Makeover, right? And we were heading to a place called Rancho El Camino in La Paz, Mexico. Yeah. Think Cabo San Lucas, south into the desert. So out of the tropical paradise into the desert. That's all it was, right?
Yes.
It was a horse ranch in the desert.
Right.
I remember getting to the bottom of the page and the cost was there. And I thought, all right. It's a couple grand, it's like, oh. And then Jeremy said, and, we want to support the people that are raising support to go on the trip. And I didn't say anything. In the meeting, I waited to get out. I'm like, raising support?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it occurred to me that there are some people who had hearts to go do this, but not the funds to go do it. And every meeting that we had, every prep meeting was another person says, I've got 75% of the money. Yeah. I've got 50% of the money. I've got 0. I've got 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, should I, like, as part of this, should I just write a check for Joe so he can go?
Right.
Really? That's so
yeah.
Wow.
Well, I had to raise the money, and that was, it's interesting. I remember to this day, exactly. Somebody gave me a check, and for me at the time, it was an enormous amount of money toward the need, and I'll never forget it. Like, sure. I was so blown away. My heart was melted by that. Somebody right here in this town, right here, yep. And the generosity, and again, just seeing God at work through that as well, right? Somebody saying like, I want to support you financially in what God's going to do in your life and over there as well, and just entrust it to Him.
And I've watched you pay that forward 1,000 times. Whatever those dollars are, I've watched you invest in other people. And some of it's financial investment, but a ton of it is your heart and time that you've invested in people.
It impacted me greatly.
Yeah.
That one, I'll never forget, even where I was standing when they handed me this check, and I looked at the number, and I my eyes almost, rolled back in my head. And I thought, wow, why, like, you don't even really know me. Why would you do that? Right. And so new experience for me at that time.
Yeah. So here's my brain. I'm thinking I'm going to get to a story about investment. So I wound up just paying my way to go on this trip, and you, me, Dennis, right? One of the greatest dorm rooms in the history of men traveling. We'll get to that. And get off the plane, get on the truck that breaks down, right? The rack body truck we're sitting in with the straw and in the desert.
A lot of stuff went wrong that trip. They're
right.
coming to mind as
Yeah.
you speak.
But in any case, get to the farm and there's this like adobe hut
Right.
and a pool
Yep.
that's full of like trees and a horse corral and a little paddock thing and not a lot. And Carmen, God rest his soul, Carmen Fusco
Yes.
led that trip as the leader, and him and Pete are going, okay, you guys are painting the house. You go build a door for the bedroom because Cher doesn't like the curtain. Puckhog,
Yeah.
right, who quit on us at the cement mixers. And then you 5 guys go mix cement. We're going to pour a floor
Yes.
for this. And I'm looking like, where's the floor going to go? And our friends from Mexico who were there, or I guess masons, or they had like mason tools and toys.
Right.
They had a masonry look about them. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to mix cement for 7 days. And then I'm going to the beach for 1. I can do this, right? So we all get there and get assigned our work. And the first day, you've got so much adrenaline and energy. You're so excited. You're just praying every 10 minutes, and I'm mixing cement.
Yes.
Who would have thought that I'd still be breathing and sneezing cement dust 2 weeks after coming home? Right? But I come to a part of the story where, if my recollection is, there were pallets of cement bags, 80-pound cement bags there, right?
Yes.
And we had gone to that construction place to get like other things they needed. The I don't know what you call that broom that you kind of swipe the top of the cement. Right. Okay. So they're doing their thing. And I'm along for the ride because they needed to hump 80-pound bags of cement. So
and
I'm
sand
in.
and rocks, buckets, five.
That's it.
5-gallon paint buckets,
and then throw
rocks.
some water in to make it even heavier.
Right.
The story is on investment. I remember, and this is not to pat myself on the back. It's I think what God does to you in the midst of some of this work. The next to last day of the trip, we get to a spot in the floor where clearly the cement has run out, where the pallets are now empty.
Yes.
And there's this like 18 by 10 section of the floor there's nothing there. There's cement everywhere, but there's this hole in the floor. And everybody's moving on to other work. And I was like, what about can you just deliver more cement? Oh, we can't. We can't afford more cement. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we're not going to not finish the floor. He goes, oh, no, there's work to do. We got a roof and this and the pool. And I'm like, no.
That's not how you roll.
No. I can't check the box.
Until it's done.
Right. So guess what we did? A couple of us headed over to the construction site and quickly bought another pallet of cement and kept mixing cement. And as I look back on it, thinking after 4.5 or 5.5 days of mixing cement, the last thing you want to do is mix cement.
More than that. Right.
Right. So we had those moments, that time, some of the pictures that we have and memories we shared coming out of that, with the food we shared, going to their church and having a meal with them there and celebrating, service with them, praying together about what the Gattos were up to.
Yeah, and what God would do on that cement slab.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because...
And which is still going on today.
I know.
Right?
And without going into a lot of detail, the Gattos' adventure, right?
Yeah.
With Cher's illness and with kid issues and so on and so forth, coming out of the missions field, back to the missions field, back to New Jersey, to Chester with Pete as a pastor, and now running our hub. So it's been a fantastic 14 years.
Hey, well, can I just say, so we talk about pictures. There's a picture on our website, foxholesymphony.com. Shout out foxholesymphony.com. So if you go to our website, actually, there is a picture under About Us or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. There's some history about our relationship. And there's a picture of us half dead, actually probably 3/4 dead.
Oh, that's right.
With our red,
Mexico makeover
shirts on. And I was about to say, I was going to joke, like, at least it was a cool climate. I mean, the heat exhaustion, like, there wasn't enough blue Gatorade. I haven't had a blue Gatorade since, because if I do, if I just smell it,
it's
I will
called
vomit.
Frost.
Yeah.
The flavor is Frost.
I have a lump in my throat.
Yeah. It's green or nothing.
Like, that there wasn't enough liquid to hydrate. I mean, the heat
Oh my gosh.
dust and cement and sand. I mean, my eyes are drying out just thinking about it. But I thought I was going to die.
Well, let's transition.
And we have a picture of it. At that point
beautiful.
right there,
Right.
I was literally like, I'm on the verge of death by heat.
You look like you're about 17 in that picture. I look like I'm 75. Because of the cement dust and the cracks and the crow's feet used to cement together every night.
Yeah.
So let me grab that story. The first day we went out and bought Gatorade and water. That lasted till about noon. Okay.
It's like a truckload.
And we worked our tuchuses off, right? To the point where the Mexicans are sitting under the trees going, that's it.
It's
Party's
too
over.
hot. Yeah.
And we're working. Like, look, I came to Mexico.
They're like, look at these silly,
Exactly,
silly
gringos.
yeah.
So that night, we come back in utter exhaustion to our dorm. There's 4 men. Shout out to Dennis and the puck hog who joined us. Laughed at exhausted. Laughing is an entirely different level of laughter.
Oh man, it hurt.
Right.
It hurt.
Ribs hurting already from the lifting during the day, but we laughed ourselves to sleep. And then Jeremy walks in and says to you, I want to put you in charge
Of food.
and water.
You have to go to the supermarket.
Now. This is 7:00. We've eaten, and all we want to do is sleep. Sleep. And Sarge, you start crying.
Yes.
You're crying, laughing, going,
Yeah, those were not tears of laughter. Okay. Those were tears of pain with some anger.
I thought to myself, of course, I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure I went with you because I just couldn't bear to think that you're going to hump cases of Gatorade.
Yeah.
But I said, whatever we got today, buy 3 times the amount.
Yeah.
And we literally would buy,
Yes.
I don't want to, total like 6 to 8 cases of Gatorade a day.
Sure. Well, there were, 15, 20 people on the team. And then the funny story is, so I do go to the supermarket. I don't know if you remember this, but I got thrown out of the supermarket. I go to this because I don't speak Spanish. I know like a couple of words, and I'm like, all right, I gotta put together a meal plan off the top of my head here, right? Figure this out. And Ted was with me.
Oh my gosh,
Ted Lapa?
Yes.
So Ted's with me.
I forgot.
And he's like just pushing the cart. I'm like, Ted, he's not gonna be any help from the speaking Spanish part. So I go up to the deli counter and I'm like, I gotta order some like a ton of turkey breast,
Deli meat.
Yeah. Like I need like 10
2 turkeys.
kilos. Like how much you got, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how to say turkey. So I go over and I'm like looking around and I see this prepackaged turkey hanging on the and I'm like, oh, okay. And I look at the label. I'm like, that's what I'll ask for. So I go over. Dummy, I should have just grabbed it and said, I need 1 million of these.
Right.
So I go over and here's this nice woman behind the counter and I hold up 2, my both hands, 10. I'm like, I need 10. I hold up both hands and I say, I need 10, the ace.
Yes.
Okay. The ace, pechuga.
Pechuga.
Yes, pechuga. And she looks at me and shakes her head. And I'm like,
he's asking for 10 turkeys.
And I'm like, 10 pechugas. And she looks at me and she turns red and she goes and gets the manager. The manager comes out and he starts yelling at me in Spanish. And I'm going, I guess I asked for too much. Right? I ordered 10 breasts and I'm holding up my hands. Okay. I'm ordering 10 breasts from this poor woman. And I had no idea. This pechuga de pavo. Pavo would be turkey breast. I had no idea. So they literally, I got walked to the door. They're like, don't come back. I'm like, I can't go back to say.
Right.
And so I had to like go in undercover
without my Gatorade,
with sunglasses and a baseball cap and avoid the deli.
Ted is probably laughing to the extent. So now we've got fully loaded, right, with, I don't even remember the food situation, but the Gatorade, you're right, to the point of nausea. It's kind of like the alcohol you drank and got sick and you say, I can't drink that anymore ever again. Yes. For me, that's Southern Comfort. But be that as it may, we get back to the room and all of a sudden, I had never heard a sleeping sound machine in my life before. And I'm laying there in the dark laughing with the guys trying to get to sleep. And I said, oh man, it's raining.
Yeah. It's pouring rain in the desert.
And I got up and opened the door to that little balcony and it's dry. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Right. And all of us are crying on the floor laughing because you're playing your
sound machine
with your rainforest
in the middle of the night.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Laughed so hard for no really good reason except I had not been exposed to that technology 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Now we have them all over the house, by the way.
Yeah.
We have white noise everywhere.
Yeah.
But so many good things about it. Let's wrap up Rancho and Mexico Makeover to say. Relationships built there have been lifelong, several. I have several relationships coming out of there.
Yes.
Others that weren't.
Dennis Summers, you're coming on as a guest. Dennis,
shout out,
if you're listening,
shout out D.
You're coming on.
Yep.
We're going to have you.
We want to know what you were telling Presley, your beautiful wife, when the rest of us were laughing ourselves to sleep, what you'd go out in the morning. I know.
They're like,
I have a feeling these guys have lost their minds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to hear all about it.
But Dennis will be on someday. We'll get him here. In any case, lifelong relationships. I went there for the work and I did the work. I learned my first lesson about faith without works is dead. Right? I got to do a deep dive into James, the book of James, and understand a little bit about that equation in my life. And it's been a struggle for me my whole life because I know before I was saved that I just thought if I did Christian or Catholic things, go to heaven.
I could be wrong, but I think that some of the teaching, the theme for that week was on the book of Nehemiah.
Okay. Oh, it was the walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was really cool.
Building together.
Some things I can remember. I have a phenomenal memory. The last 3 weeks, nothing. Ugats. I got nothing. You're like, what happened on Wednesday? Why? What day is it? I don't know. 15 years ago? Oh yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
So shout out to Pete. Shout out to Mexico Makeover for Jer for the work there. I have it here in front of me. You guys can't hear it except that's me banging this rock. I have a white rock with a great thumbprint in it. It says La Paz, Mexico, November 14th, 2008. I've had this on my desk since we come back. Wow. And I use it as a stress relief rock, not that anyone else could see it.
It's really cool.
The other thing I have from that trip, the other totem I have is my son Jack and I, shout out to Jackie, have collected sand dollars over the years since he was a kid. When we walk the beach, the rules are they have to be whole, no cracks, nothing, just a whole sand dollar on the Jersey Shore is not easy. The day we took off on Mexico Makeover, remember we went to the beach when you got attacked by the jellyfish?
A man of war, Portuguese man of war. I went rear end over tea kettle
on a jet ski.
Doing 100 miles an hour, almost broke my back, and then
landed on.
And then Dave, I land in this swarm of Portuguese man of war who are stinging me to death, and Dave can do nothing but laugh. I'm screaming for help.
We thought you were laughing.
Yeah, no.
From the beach. Remember us waving?
Yeah.
Hey, Sarge.
Also got stung by a scorpion on that trip.
But he had the common sense to go in your shoe.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part. They're like, don't take off your shoes. And you took off your shoes in the restaurant. But on the beach there, sand dollars were like sand. You could get a sand. All you had to do was reach.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, there were sand.
Remember that.
Well, there were sand. We were the ones on the beach just hanging out.
Yeah.
And I can lay on the beach for about 43 seconds. And then I was walking on the beach and I'm realizing that they weren't sitting. There were some above and they were black. So the only black sand dollar, Jack and I have a framed collection of sand dollars. There's probably 20 in there that we have found together over the years. There's one black one. And it's from whatever beach that was.
That's cool.
In La Paz, Mexico.
Amazing.
So let's do Feed the Need.
Okay, this could be a 3-hour episode. If at this pace,
I know it's okay. We'll edit it out. Don't worry.
Well, we've talked about Feed the Need. I mean,
that happened in our backyard.
Well, that's one.
We didn't have to go to Mexico.
No, and that's one of those perfect opportunities that I think people go, hey, like great opportunity to get my kids, because my kids are very selfish.
Right.
I better get my kids right. And truth be told, some of that was born out of Christina and I looking for opportunities for our kids to serve. Kids were young. We're like, just looking to serve as a family. Where can we go serve as a family? And very, very challenging to find those opportunities.
Sure.
And that's what, Feed More Starving Children's mobile pack events are a great opportunity for that, because it's all ages.
Right.
And I remember we went with a small group to go check it out in Lancaster, Mount Joy, Pennsylvania.
Sure.
At
We
their,
did it
their
for a
own
day.
site, right? And what was really wild, I brought my kids, and they broke us up, and Hannah was next to this older gentleman, this senior who was sort of on the line,
Right.
packing. I don't know if you remember this, because I think you were standing next to me, and because we were, at that same packing station,
Sure.
but not right next to her. She was with this old man, and it was all about getting it right for this old man and getting it done quickly. It was about to come to how much can we pack as fast as we can. And that's what it was about. And here's little Hannah, who I don't know how old she was at the time. I mean, this is probably 9, 10, if that.
Right.
Maybe younger. And she was struggling, to get the bag open. And that was her job, which is not the job for an 8-year-old.
Correct.
It's going to slow you down.
It has the static electricity.
Exactly.
You got to rub it
I
together.
still, to this day.
Yes.
Right? But she can't get the bag open. And this guy was so angry and starts yelling at her.
I remember this now.
And I wanted to jump over the table and have a field day. Okay?
Be a nose tackle again.
I wanted to be a nose tag. I wanted to take this man down. You're going to yell at my daughter? Like, give her a second. And I didn't. God just like shut my mouth. And he grabs the bag out of her hand and continues to struggle to get the bag open. Couldn't do it. And you watched his entire countenance change. Like he realized what just happened. And
Thank you, God.
And all of a sudden, and over the course of this hour, God just developed this little relationship between them that I watched unfold. And
That's beautiful.
And I just kind of stayed out of it. So that's what comes to mind. Like when you say feed the need, like there's that catalyst moment before we ever even launched it. And then there's God showing up, which we've talked about to again, just the ability to, it was outside of our ability to get 10,000 volunteers and $1 million to pack 2 million meals
in 5 days.
In 5 days was the furthest thing from possible.
Right.
Right. It was mission impossible. Only God could do it. And,
was it 4 years in a row or 5 years in a row we did it? And in increasing levels of money and
it was
and
5.
food.
Yeah. 5
years.
5 years.
So for me, 2 or 3 things jump the pinky.
Yeah.
So we'd show up a couple hours before everybody else and start bouncing this. Oh, there it is. Can't reach it.
Yeah.
The pinky ball off the wall to get warmed up because we knew what was coming in the next 12 hours. I remember Excel spreadsheets. You started making fun of me that day about the fact that I just had a clipboard with Excel spreadsheets trying to track volunteers and time and every pallet was a ton, right? It was 2,000 pounds of rice in a pallet.
Yeah.
Never forgot it. I remember I would always buy a gigantic bag of M&Ms and hide them for you and me. So we always had fuel. But then our friend Rich Gilchrist from the Fudge Shop, shout out Fudge Shop.
Oh, man.
Remember that 5-pound box of nonpareils?
Oh.
Right. I remember that. I remember the song Happy. Remember Happy
Yes.
by Pharrell?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because in the course of, in the last year of that 5 days, and we packed all day for 5 days.
Yeah.
We played Happy once every shift because everybody was dancing and packing more.
Yeah.
And even though that isn't exactly what it was about, look, we had a goal.
Yeah.
We raised the money to pack 2 million meals. What were you gonna say?
I was going to say, just beautiful relationships built. I mean, those that already knew each other, like us, that were just growing deeper, and then seeing strangers. I mean, just strangers, working side by side from the community, building community. And going back to my point earlier, I mean, we made it a point that every 2-hour session, which there were, 4 or 5 a day,
Right.
and hundreds of people, came in, and we took the time to talk about why we did it, because a lot of people that were not followers of Jesus coming just to do a good thing, which is great.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't why we were doing it. And so we got to say, listen, we do this because, we love Jesus and he first loved us, and he calls us to love others. Right. And so, and again, oversimplifying a little bit, we took a little bit longer than that and talked about, raised awareness about what was happening in
hunger.
severely malnourished, third world countries. So Anyway, I mean, those are things that come to mind, and
it's
so
such
much opportunity.
Yeah, great story. The conversations there, I joined it because it was something to do. By the way, if you haven't listened to Bias Towards Action, we are now proving that we have a bias towards action, and,
Right.
and me in particular. But I don't know that I joined that for the right reasons. I learned this is part of the journey, folks.
Yeah.
This is what you do. If you join something just because it's a good thing to do, it's okay.
Yeah.
It may not be the reason that exactly why it's being done, and you need to peel that onion back and understand.
Yeah.
I learned about food scarcity, and it was the reason I started volunteering with Grow a Row. I went from Feed the Need to Grow a Row right in my backyard. I said, okay, I just sent food to Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Can I send it to Newark,
Yep.
Camden, Jersey City?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right, another story on Grow a Row.
Yeah.
But let's agree that was another. You notice 2 trips were very exhausting. I
Yeah.
remember like crawling out of
Oh,
there on the last day and sleeping for 2 days.
Yeah.
But doing a good thing, right? A physical event, labor, right? Packing these Ziplocs,
Yeah.
chicken, veggies, soy, and rice.
Yeah.
And then
True-
the impact that
yeah.
it could have around the
I
world.
was going to say, truly lives saved. Many. I mean, many.
Without question.
All over the world, and the contributions. It was financial. It was somebody donated and had to find a forklift. Frank Lentini.
my gosh.
On that forklift
God
day in and
bless
day
him.
out. Right. Like
Bill Potapowicz,
moving
soy.
pallets. Oh my gosh. I mean,
Bill, shout out to Bill.
So it was just amazing, and
So now take us from.
yeah.
You can do this better than anybody. I know you may have told a
we
little bit of
told
this
it.
story.
We told the story. I
The
mean,
Zimbabwe connection?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell
Okay.
it really quickly. Like
Go ahead.
we then, make a connection with a missionary, Bud Jackson, who really taught me the very most about approaching cross-cultural missions in the healthiest way possible. And yeah, so grateful for Bud and Mandy and
Sure.
And their guidance in that and wisdom and having grown up and lived and then of course served in Zimbabwe most of their lives. But so we go to Zimbabwe to visit them and again, what are we going to do? Right. It's like, going to the mission hospital and the orphanages and orphan homes. And so again, we're at the mission hospital in Karanda and we come to find out that these meals, these Feed My Starving Children meals, these Feed the Need meals are in the kitchen. They're being utilized. We found out that, the first Feed the Need that we did, our meals went to Zimbabwe and had no idea. And I tried to track it. And ultimately, this is where some of them landed.
Hallelujah.
And we got to really, really see the impact of that on the ground. And, but, beyond that, my relationship with Pastor Henry, with Henry Zahove and his darling wife, Maritzo, and with Rob Chifakoyo, who was on, and with Nyasha and others. I mean, just lifelong relationships now that
How is
we're
Nyasha
developing.
now? Do you know?
She's doing very well.
She is.
She's doing very well. She's in Sweden. Would love to have her on at some time to talk about
That'd be great.
reconciliation and her
Her healing. Yeah.
it's just amazing story there. Amazing. Should be a movie or series of movies. But anyway, the relational aspect, going to Zimbabwe, looking around saying, oh my gosh, they need so much help, and coming to realize, it's me that needs so much help. And through the relationships, not leading them, but just listening to their vision, listening to, Henry and his team talk about, there was no grass growing under his feet, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it still isn't to this day. They've done amazing work with some nominal seed investments and have developed income producing projects that not only care for hundreds of orphans, but, financially support their own ministry. So they're not relying on, funds from the West or other parts of the world.
Wow.
It's incredible.
So we were part of an event that packed food.
Yep.
That you and my wife went to Zimbabwe.
Yes.
For totally different purposes.
Exactly.
Unrelated purposes. And see, how often do we pray? This is key. How often do we pray that our efforts, our prayers, our hands, our wallets, our time, our treasures will be put to work by God.
Yeah.
We, loaves and fishes.
Yeah.
We give them, he does the work.
Yeah.
You show up at a facility,
A hospital. Yeah.
and the boxes of bags of food are there.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Folks, this is our God.
Yeah.
This is what God does.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll sometimes the answer is hard fought, quiet prayer time, years to get an answer to prayer, right? You've prayed it to death, as I said yesterday.
And then we had the opportunity in Guatemala with, with a team of youth and led by Matt Dawson, and tremendous trip and unbelievable with another organization called GAIN, Global Aid Network. Watch these kids talk about hauling cement. Watch these kids haul bricks and cement up a mountain over and over and over again so that, we could get supplies to this mountaintop Mayan village to build fireplaces and so that they could cook those meals. They weren't Feed the Need meals, but meals from Feed My Starving Children. So we knew exactly what they were. We're like, oh my gosh, grab the boxes. They'd happen to get there as well. And, just incredible to see those connections, to see, because you're right. We pray these things, we entrust it to God, and we say, Lord, like use it. And we loft it up there and we hope and we trust that it gets used. But the opportunity to go and travel and see the interconnectedness of what God is doing, this
amazing,
beautiful tapestry he's weaving around the world is so incredible. And that's what I was saying earlier about the awareness, of God, his movement and his mission around the world and how he's using his people everywhere to do this, and not one way. Not one way.
No,
at all.
You and I talk about authentic community all the time. This is God's global community.
Oh, man.
We're part of that. It's our pebble in the pond story. I mean, I don't mean to pick out all the things we talk about over time, but you drop that pebble in, the ripples go as far as Zimbabwe. They also go next door.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you get to, you've done it. You've dropped something. Oh, the ripples, and they hit the wall and they stop.
I remember when we were going to do Feed the Need, I had a lot of people complaining.
Yeah.
Why are we sending food there when there's people starving in our backyard? I said, no, there aren't. No, there's not.
Right.
There aren't. We don't have starvation here. I'm sorry. We have infrastructure and social services, and it's very different.
Right.
And, am I saying that we have food insecurity? Absolutely, we have food insecurity. It's different.
Yep.
But people were livid.
I remember.
But until you really see it and experience it, and it's hard to fathom. And it wasn't, it was both and. Yeah, we're going to do it here and we're going to do it there, right? And so, I
love it.
Yeah, I am passionate about serving in our local communities as well.
I love how God did that for you and me in our relationship. I now can recall you calling me on the phone, telling me that story about people complaining. And I remember we agreed I'd focus on volunteers and rice, and you'll deal with the
people.
Yeah, that's tough. And these were our giftings, because I would have choked the daylights out of somebody who complained.
I guess all part of the journey, right? God used it. I mean, over the years, listen, I've been that difficult person many times over, right? Sure. Are you kidding?
Well, here's some, for me in closing, thinking about how to wrap this up. I've written down some ideas about what I learned beyond the fun anecdotal memories.
Yeah.
What I've learned through this process, because I haven't gone on a missions trip in a decade.
Yeah.
Over a decade. I've learned that it's totally capable to build friendships based on God's plan.
Oh, yeah.
It's a plan I don't understand. I don't know the details. I can tell you some of my greatest friendships have God at the dead center of them. I learned that.
Yeah.
Also, I'm able now to see through the labor to the love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a separate podcast, but that's really important for me. It's not the doing.
It's the being.
Correct.
Yep.
I watched how God uses these events for his good, making heart connections and reminding us that with him, anything's possible.
Yeah.
His ripples are tsunamis.
Yeah.
Mine are little pond ripples. It's great. Teaching us that missions begin at home and in the local church.
Yeah.
I don't know what Hybels is doing today, but I'll never forget he said the future of Christianity is in the local church.
Hope of the world.
Hope of the world.
Yeah.
Right? And I believe that from what I've seen, going to as far as Mexico or delivering food as far as Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And serving right in a farm 1 mile from my house, picking tomatoes and bringing them to Jersey City.
Yeah.
I've seen the value of both of those. I love that God provides evidence to us, empirical evidence. We can never share enough or do enough to bear witness to his love, whether it's in half a mile away or halfway around the world.
Yeah.
You can. And that's how I breathe easier in my bias towards action, because the core of the energy that I get to do that is love.
Yeah.
And that's what, back to the Bible, where we belong, that's what I feel called to do. Spread the word, spread his love.
Yeah.
And I can do that with you sitting 3 feet from me, 4 feet from me, or I can go and where I feel led, people feel led. I'm not saying, I'm not making a value judgment on should you go to X place to do something. If you feel led to do that, go.
Yeah.
Go. What have you learned?
Yeah, a few things. So, I'm thinking about the relationships that are built on a team that go. And I'm asking myself, why is that? Right? Where does that come from? How is that? And I think something happens in relationship development, in building authentic community, when we become less selfish. So for me, a lot of it is it's being outward focused. It's about others.
Yep.
So going and just being and learning to be, and I remember lots of mission trips, lots of mission trips, and when I was going on mission trips, I would say, well, what are we going to do? That's the question. What are we going to do when we get there?
Right.
Well, there will be stuff to do. And some, like Mexico, there was a lot to do. And I remember,
it was a do
I remember Bud Jackson saying, we're not going to do anything. I'm like, well, I can't tell the team that. What am I going to tell the people? How are they going to, they just raised funds, thousands of dollars to get sent to do nothing. What do you mean? They're going to just sit around? That's our Western mindset. Yep. That's exactly what we're going to do. What?
Right.
We're just going to build relationship. Well, yeah, doing what?
Right, that incongruity.
So the letting go of the doing,
right,
and really just seeking to know, God and his people, and learn culture, be in relationship. Man, so beautiful and so different. But I'm going to go and just help them. It's actually selfish. It's selfish. It's selfish. It's prideful.
Yep.
So getting rid of that selfishness. And then the other is gratitude, right? It's just expanding our understanding of the world, how people live, how God's at work in different places, and just the gratitude. So when you have, the selfishness goes away and we really start just looking at people, getting to know them, and then our hearts become filled with gratitude, the relational connection is deep.
Sure.
So the question I have is, what does that look like every day? How do we apply that every day to build authentic community right where God's placed us? Because we don't live on the mission field, most of us.
Right.
Right. And even if we do, it probably doesn't feel like it because that's just your day to day.
Right.
So, right, that it's bringing that back and holding on to those things so that we can build authentic community and point people to Jesus.
Amen. Wow.
It's been a journey.
Has.
Deeply grateful for it.
Me too.
Could talk about these for hours and days.
Yep. And we won't do that to you, faithful listeners. But at the same time, thought it was incredibly valuable just to unpack this a little bit together.
Yeah.
It's been an area that you and I have served well together, grown closer together. Our love for each other has grown, relationship, family, these are landmark moments, right? Because when you go away from your family for 10 days,
yep,
It's an event.
Absolutely.
It fits. There's so many other little things I'm sure we're not remembering and don't have the time to do right now. Suffice to say, I love the journey with you. As you know, I'm a big fan with a one-way ticket on Rocket Sarge.
Let's do a trip, baby. Let's go.
We should talk about that.
We're going to.
Thank you, everybody. Great talking to you.
And if you're sitting there going, well, how do I do that? Get plugged into a local church.
That's it.
And say, hey, do you have a missions team? Do you have global mission partners? And you want to get stretched and really grow, in your faith and in relationship, with those you're traveling with, and just expand your awareness of how God is moving around the world. Sign up. Go on a trip like that.
We're gonna stop this just before an hour.
Beautiful. We should.
Yeah. Amen.
Good to see you again, brother.
You too, Geese.
God bless everybody.
PA, Mexico, Jersey, Zimbabwe, Guatemala. Man, that was so beautiful to hear about how God uses his sons and daughters to not only serve our brothers and sisters in need, but then how God serves the ones serving, and how he makes the impossible possible. Steve reminded us that missions trips facilitate authentic relationships with God, with our brothers and sisters on the team, and with the people we are blessed to be able to serve. And here at the Foxhole Symphony podcast, we're all about those authentic relationships. Get connected and turn our love for God and our fellow man into action. Actions that will change lives, starting with yours. Lord, please continue to use this podcast to impact the lives of all who listen. I ask that you would bring hope and healing to each and every one of them, Lord. Meet them right where they are and reveal yourself to them like only you can do. In Jesus' name, amen.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it and invite others to the Foxhole. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you know when new episodes drop, and please rate us and comment there too, as it'll help us get found by others who could benefit. Find, follow, and like us on your go-to social media networks by searching Foxhole Symphony, or visit foxholesymphony.com to make it super easy to find us. Drop us a line with feedback, questions, topic requests, who knows? Maybe you'll be a guest on a future episode. In the meantime, prepare to move, embrace discomfort, and just be you.